Okay, so we're covering apologetics, and this week, again, we're still working on the existence of God. And this time, we're going to look at design. Now, what is design? Design is a plan, like an architect designs a building, and it can be anything from like a sketch to a to-do list. Um, it's a plan and that plan can exist in your mind just as an intention, and it can be expressed physically in a model or a sketch or a structure. Um, so we want to discuss the plan of the world around us. Is there a plan to the world around us? The world exists, and since the world exists, can we see a design in the plan? Because if we can see a design in the plan, there has to be someone who did the designing. So, or is it just a jumble, a mass of stuff that was thrown together, like the whole Big Bang Theory or, evolution, where everything just sort of came together by chance? All right. So, what is chance? When we use the word chance, we mean something that had its cause in an unforeseen circumstance. For example, we say we met by chance or it chanced to rain. In these expressions, we mean that the meeting that took place, which had its cause in persons whom happened to meet and because of their choice of paths, and that meeting was unforeseen or unintended. When we say that it rained by chance, we mean the rain that had its cause in atmospheric conditions wasn't unintended. It just happened to be a circumstance. We never really use the word chance, meaning that it caused something. Chance is an effect. All of those were unintended effects. The cause was something else, the meeting of the two people, the paths that they decided to take, the conditions in the atmosphere. That was the cause. The chance was an effect. Chance is never a cause of anything. Chance can't produce anything. If chance were the cause, then logically there would be an intention, which contradicts itself. So chance can't be a cause of anything. But so the next question is, so could the world have come in, since it couldn't have happened by chance, can we say that the world was made without a plan or any kind of adequate design? But yeah, all right, it wasn't made by chance, but there is no design to it, is basically what we're saying. Is that possible? Not if you're at all intelligent. You can't look around you and look at the world around you and possibly come up with the idea that there's no design to this. That the earth revolves at a particular speed. No faster, no slower. It doesn't speed up. It goes around the sun, and it takes a certain amount of time to accomplish that. That everywhere you look around you, there is design. Plants. Just take a look at a plant. Every part of the plant. So and this goes back to the beginning of when intelligent people began to think about this. The Greeks themselves looked at the world and they called it the cosmos. What does cosmos mean? Cosmos means a well-ordered thing. The Romans called the world mundus. What does mundus mean? It means something that's clean and orderly. Even the ancient peoples looking at the world could see design. So if you can't see design in it, your intelligence is off. You're lacking. You're lacking more than a little bit, you're lacking a lot if you can't see design in the world. So we see the regularity in the movements of the earth, in the plants, the different species of living things, how they interact together, how some animals and plants actually need each other. That we say we say they live in symbiosis. They're not parasites. There are certain fish that clean other fish. There are certain microorganisms in the soil that a tree can't live without those. When you replant a pine tree, do you know you're supposed to take some of the dirt with it? If you don't, that tree will die, because there are microorganisms in the soil that plant has become used to, and it has to have those. And it's not just the pine trees. There are other things. I remember recently I got some. What was it you planted? And I told you had to make sure you had not sarsaparilla. You make filet out of it. Sassafras. Yeah. Sassafras. You need the dirt. You need the dirt wherever you dug the sassafras up. You need to take some of that dirt too. But again, for the same reason, it has microorganisms in it that the plant needs. And so there are physical, chemical, biological laws. And in every case, these laws are formulas that scientists can use to project things, to know you cross this plant with this plant, what are you going to get? They can tell you. These laws are so uniform and so constant that they show that a certain order and regularity in the world around us. Just for example, take a look at a plant, the marvelous arrangement of its structure, that the roots take in the water and the minerals, that there are mitochondria in there that the powerhouse, and where did the mitochondria get their power? From the chlorophyll, which takes the sunlight and turns it into energy that the mitochondria can use and send to other parts in the cell. I was going to say, did I send? Every once in a while I lean against the table and the thing on the alarm goes off on my car. So I thought that might have been my car. No. All right. So order means that there's an arrangement, a regularity to things, a function. And design has to have order and regularity. And so wherever you see order and regularity, that proves that there is a design. Order means that there's an arrangement. But that arrangement is made in the view of some end, some purpose. For example, like as I said, the roots have a purpose for the plant. Their purpose is to take in water and minerals from the soil. The mitochondria have a purpose. The chlorophyll has a purpose. And what is the purpose or the end? That's what you need to look for. So every plant is skillfully constructed. And did that just happen haphazardly? Or was it designed? Thus, there is order everywhere around us. And that order is there, and we can see the purpose of everything in that order. And therefore, the fact that there is order in the world around us shows that there is a design. And so, first of all, wherever there's order, there is necessarily a design. Wherever there is a design, there is infallibly, I thought I locked that door. Wherever there is a design, there is infallibly a designer. And where there's a designer, there has to be an intelligent force. Design just, as it says, didn't just happen. It had to be intelligently designed. There has to be an intelligence behind that design. So, and the more wonderful the design, the more obviously the more wonderful or intelligent is the designer. So when we look around the world that we live in and the complexity of the world that we live in, can we say that the designer of this was not intelligent? That he was not infinitely intelligent? That the execution of this design doesn't show great power? Hence, as we looked at causation, that which is first is always first, the cause of everything. And both in conferring motion and in making and executing a design. So that first being, that cause, we saw that he's infinite. He also therefore means he is limitless in all his perfections. So it follows that first being is also infinite in intelligence and in power. In other words, we mean that he is omniscient, he knows everything, and he's omnipotent, he's almighty. So we have two more attributes to God. We know that he's one, he's necessary, he's infinite, he's immutable. Now we can add to that omniscient and omnipotent. So it comes down to two logical arguments, two syllogisms. The Greeks always put everything down into syllogisms. There's two of them. I like the second one better, but I'll give you the first. If the world exhibits a most wonderful and constant order, it has to have a wonderful and intelligent designer. Its designer must, in the last analysis, be the infinite first cause, or therefore God. That's the first premise. The second is, now the world does exhibit a most wonderful and constant order. So if the first premise is true and the second is true, the conclusion has to be true. The conclusion is, therefore, the world has a most wonderful, intelligent designer. In other words, that designer must, in the last analysis, be the infinite first cause, or God, and therefore God exists. I like the second argument better, because people are going to argue about that first one. But this one's a little bit more, well, you'll see. The execution of divine of such marvelous complexity and perfection as the design of the world demands, in the last analysis, the exercise of infinite power. Think about that a second. The execution of the design in the world that you see around you, this marvelous complexity and the perfection of that design, demands that whoever designed it had to have infinite power. Now, the exercise of infinite power is the power of God. Therefore, the execution of the design in the world means that there has to be a God who exercised that power. I like that better. The reason why, because the first one begins out with almost saying that there has to be a God, where this one you actually, it follows, for atheists, it's probably a little bit easier, to put this forward with them. Now, of course, whenever you put forward a premise like this or some logical conclusion, you're going to have people who are going to jump on it and say, yes, but. We looked at that and all that we've looked at. So what are the arguments against this? One of the first arguments they're going to say imperfections. There are imperfections in the world, and there are imperfections in the design and execution of these things in the world. So it seems that there must be defects in the designer and the executor. So such a designer of the world could not be of infinite intelligence and power, or he would have seen that he would have fixed these imperfections. There wouldn't be any imperfections if he's so great, so perfect. The answer to that is, first of all,
It's easy. There's a devil.
Well, that's true, but we have remember we're the whole point of apologetics is you don't want to get you're arguing from simply logical standpoints, and we haven't even proven the existence of a devil yet, so we can't go there. We have to work with what we have, which is the world itself. So looking at the world itself, what does the word perfection mean? When we think of the word perfection, there's two types of perfections. First of all, absolute perfection. That means something that is absolutely perfect means its perfection is without limits. It has no deficiencies. It lacks nothing. How many absolute perfections can there be in the world? How many can exist at all anywhere? Huh?
It was only one.
Exactly, only one. God. Because and therefore and by necessity we already defined that he has to be infinite and he has to be one, so there can only be one, and that is God, who is absolutely perfect. So everything else cannot be absolutely perfect. Everything else can be relatively perfect. So what is relative perfection? Relative perfection means that something is perfect in relation to what it was designed for. Things are measured as perfect or imperfect in relation to the fitness or unfitness of toward their end. So, for example, the roots of a plant, we said its purpose is to draw in water and food for the plant. Do the roots serve its purpose? Yes. So it's perfect, relatively. Yes, it probably could be more perfect than that, but it does serve its purpose. So for its purpose, it is perfect. The world, notwithstanding all of its imperfections, is admirably suited to the attainment of the end for which it was designed. Everything in the world serves its purpose. Therefore, though it's not absolutely perfect, which would be impossible, because again, there can only be one absolutely perfect being. So, though it's not absolutely perfect, it is relatively perfect. So, and secondly, it's also not reasonable to expect that a perfect cause, God, must always produce the best thinkable effects. Must all the works of an agent be measured in full power of that agent? For example, a car that is designed to go 90 miles an hour, must it always be driven at 90 miles an hour and never driven at 5? No. Just because a thing, you can make a thing, you put limits on a thing, it doesn't mean that it can't be more or less than that. It has to always be that. So God, who is infinitely wise, he makes everything that he makes, he intends his intention is that it be the very best for what it was intended to be used for in relation to the end for which it was designed. So the world is not the best, maybe the best world. It could always be better, but it is relatively the best world. It fits it serves its purpose. Imperfections in the world, of course, is not the fact that there are imperfections in the world does not necessarily negate the whole argument, because for there to be an imperfection, there has to be a standard. Otherwise, how do you know that it's imperfect? That actually shows the existence of a designer who has to be perfect, because you have to be able to hold it up against something to say that it's imperfect. For there to be something imperfect, there has to be something that is perfect. Imperfections, therefore, are no argument against design. In fact, they're a proof of design because exceptions prove the rule. And when we speak of imperfections in the world, we usually mean things like a harsh climate, noxious or poisonous plants and animals, ill health, wastelands, swamps, wars, famines, plagues, poverty. Many of these things are directly or indirectly due to our man's abuse. They were not created that way by God. God gave man free will, and we abused the earth. We're the ones, listen to all those reformers out there. They'll tell you how much we've abused the earth. They can't be ascribed to God. They're not his fault. They're our fault. War is not God's fault. Man is the one who goes to war. We cut down all the rainforest. That's our fault. We make certain animals extinct. That's our fault. That's not God's doing. Other imperfections, such as hard climate, noxious plants, etc., are unintelligible perfections unless you want to go to the area where we haven't covered yet. Sin. If you admit that man introduced sin into the world and therefore those imperfections, as a result of sin, those things are now necessary. Why? Why are they now necessary? So you can make up for your sin. But these things lose their imperfections when you think that they are actually necessary. They actually become part of the design. How intelligent was the Creator that when we marred the work, it still serves its purpose? Without hardship, without the stimulus of plagues and famine and things like that, man would quickly degenerate and become disordered in his passions. Imperfections in the world afford the occasion an opportunity for self-control, for formation of character, without which man would never develop his capabilities or capacities. Evil and suffering in the world are problems insoluble only when you look at them by themselves. For example, a materialist, for the materialist or the unbeliever, those are problems, but not for the believer or the person who believes in God, who loves God. They don't become problems. Those are not imperfections for them. For the materialist, the atheist, the humanist, yes. For them, yes. For the man who does not refuse to look at human life as it is against the background of eternity, if you don't believe in a life hereafter, that you're only living in this life for the here and now, yes, you've got a problem. And those are imperfections in your life. Your life is not going the way you expected. Sorry. For me, it's not a problem. There are such things as unpleasant means that will serve a good end. But these are endurable and even highly desirable in view of the import of the end which we hope to achieve. In other words, man marred the plan, but God still is allowing us, it made the plan so well constructed that it still serves its end. And those means that we ended up shoving into the plan still serve his end. And so they are properly permitted to be part of the design. How much wiser and more intelligent is the designer who, when his original work is blighted and broken, can quickly adapt the wreckage to serve so well an end as ever. All right, another argument against the designer. Man can produce by art some of the things produced naturally in the world. Notice it's only some of the things, not all of the things. For example, a man can produce by artificial means a diamond that the same as those that are produced in nature. Of course, it's very expensive, probably prohibitively expensive, but this doesn't negate the design in nature. The diamond maker also has to have a plan. I mean, he didn't come up with that design by, snapping his fingers. He had to plan it out. He had to study the physical, geological laws to be able to produce that. And did he make those laws? No. Simply because a man can design a thing now doesn't mean that couldn't be designed before by an all-powerful designer. He's just copying. It's like somebody all right, Leonardo da Vinci paints the Mona Lisa. Yeah, and I could take a paintbrush, do a paint by number thing and copy it. Is mine as good as that one? Yeah, I'm the designer now? No, I'm sorry, I'm not. It's a copy. Just because you can copy something, that makes you better than the designer? Or that negates the idea that there was a designer? The scientists can name every part of a thing that's created. This is another argument. This is a thing which in the past men couldn't do. Now we know that, what is mitochondria? What is chlorophyll? We can name every part of a plant. And we know everything that they do but scientists, scientists brings progress, and things once thought of as miraculous now can be explained. So, yeah, you used to think that, the fact that the plant, they used to, for example, they used to believe that in spontaneous generation, that means that life came from nothing. That you could put meat here on the table and it would grow mold. Well, the mold just sprang up, it came from nothing. Well, Louis Pasteur disproved this he put broth into a container, and he put it in a glass container, and he bent the top of it so that it formed, the air couldn't get into it. And without air, that meat in that container, or that broth, didn't go moldy. It lasted, it didn't grow. So he proved that there were microbes in the air. There was bacteria. There were things in the air. They didn't have names for them yet, that reacted with the food and caused the mold to grow. But if there was no air, you cut it off you could keep it forever. That we now have canning. That's the whole point of canning. Kill the germs, cut off the air, and the food will last forever, pretty much. You really shouldn't keep the food more than a year or two, but I've had my mom's bomb shelter. I know there was food down there was 10 years old, and we were still eating it. Anyway, so knowing something is not the same as being able to do something. So knowing the design is not being able to carry it out. So being able to name every piece, every part of the plant, the mitochondria, the stoma, the pistils, the anthers, all the parts of it. Can you create it just because you know the names of all the parts of it? Can you make it grow, flower, produce a seed, and be able to that seed produce another one? No, you can't. When we hear talk of energy, nature, force, adaptation, environment variations, mutations, remember these are just names and nothing more. Anyone can paste a label on something. And they could call it whatever name they want. Instead of calling it mitochondria, you could call it something else. Doesn't change its purpose. And it doesn't change the designer. Because you know the name doesn't change anything. So, in summary, we've defined what a design is, and we've studied that it's obviously present in the world. And we have seen that chance could never have caused anything, but is only an accident or a circumstance of an effect. From the order and design in the world, we can conclude by direct reasoning the existence of a designer. And we've seen that this designer has to have boundless intelligence and power. In other words, he has to be omniscient and omnipotent. So, thus far, adding up everything that we've covered, we've learned by sheer reasoning, not calling on any kind of religious myths or revelation, just pure reasoning and looking at the world, we can deduce that there is a first cause of the world, and this that caused all things that are in it, and that this first cause is eternal, one, infinite, necessary, all because he is the first cause, immutable because of the evidence of motion. And now we can add to it that he is omniscient and omnipotent. The first cause, and there's one more thing that we need to add that we haven't covered, but but the fact that there is a design in the world should tell you that the first cause is also perfectly free. Because because the first cause is one and is therefore alone, there was nothing that could have forced him to create the world. He did it freely. It was his choice. The first cause was perfectly free to produce what he wanted and the effects that it caused. This most perfect first cause we call God. Any questions? All understood.
Pretty good.
I write from the book. I do. I mean, I can't go through everything that the book gives. The book often gives more examples than what I give you. But yes, so if you have a chance, I do recommend getting the book by Father Glenn on apologetics. It's something that used to be taught in high schools. I hear from this that La Salle, that's what Luke is learning in high school this year. And that's what our school taught. I don't know if they still teach it because I haven't taught high school and didn't teach high school. In the 20 years I taught in BVM in Syracuse, I only taught high school on 2 different occasions. Mostly I was with the 5th and 6th grade, 5th grade for a while and the 6th grade for a while. Yeah, they did teach apologetics at one point. I don't know if they still do, but it was a necessary part because you have to be, again, as I said in the first class, you have to be able to prove the existence of God and prove your faith without using anything but pure logic. Again, our faith is totally logical. You need to understand that it is that and why it's that. Because there are people that are not going to accept anything else. An atheist doesn't believe in God. So you have to be able to prove the existence of God without going to anything but the world around you. Things that he can see, things that he can intelligently understand. Now, they will, of course, go into, like some of these arguments, they are totally illogical, but you have to be able to point out how illogical they are, that they contradict themselves. So that's the whole point of apologetics. So no questions. Everybody understands everything well. Okay. So we will continue next week.